to be the person that can say sorry very easily is extremely like it's a virtue that I think we all strive for and that we need to practice more and more to remind ourselves, I am not perfect. I can very easily make mistakes. Maybe I'll say like maybe I'll say sorry and then look at it deeper later instead of like immediately going to yeah but this but. Hi, my name is Luella Young. I'm a psychotherapist and coach. And if you're interested in how your lifestyle is affecting your mental health, then you're at the right place. On this show, I interview various guests from across the miles and share how their lifestyle choices affects their sense of self, their wealth, and most importantly, their health. Enjoy the show. Hey, it's solo time. I'm on here today and I just felt like coming on just to actually it's going to be sort of like a relationships like soup. A lot of different topics about relationships that have sort of been going through my mind. And I think I was inspired to speak out a little bit when I I mean, I always am, like, because I have conversations every day, right, with people that are struggling with relationships. But, there was a particular interview that I heard. There was a host interviewing a relationship expert, someone who has written a fair bit of books, and she's a woman. And like she said a couple things that I thought, oh, interesting. That's not the way I see it at all. Um, yet, I mean, you're an expert at this. And so I just wanted to start off by stating that because, you might think I'm going to reach out to this therapist or that therapist because they are quote unquote, an expert in the field, but it really all comes back to you and what your needs are um, in and out of the therapy room. And what I mean by that is, I mean, we all are, as I say over and over, very individualistic human beings. We all have varying needs. Some things are very triggering to us, while others, it's, not a big deal. Some habitual behaviors, you know, are very easy for us to incorporate, while others are extremely challenging. And the way I see it, in terms of behaviors and habits and things like that, I mean, if it's working well for you, wonderful. Keep on doing it. You got this, secret sauce that other people may struggle with. But if there's certain behaviors that, you know, seem, I don't know, offensive to others and it's constantly being brought up, chances are you might want to change that because, the jerk, the jerk, the joke I say sometimes is, if it's 10 a.m. and you've encountered 3 jerks so far in your day, chances are you're the jerk. I mean, you're the common denominator. These things are happening to you by certain people for a reason. So let's take a closer look at that. I think people like coming to me because I challenge them on their specific behaviors and why their world is not reflecting, the way that they had dreamed it to be, sort of thing. Why they find themselves in these predicaments over and over, why they constantly have these same perpetual conflicts in their lives. again, chances are it's you. It's not life happening to you. It's life happening for you. Same with your health, right? I mean, um, these bodily sensations that you're feeling, your aches, your pains, your gut discomfort, whatever, your skin, it's showing up for a reason. Your body's telling you something. Wake up. I've been telling you this for years. Like, you are the driver of your health. Please do something about it. So, yeah, I mean, it's all about self-awareness. And so, okay, back to the interview that this relationship expert was speaking on. So there was a couple of things, like I said, that were kind of sparked my interest. Number one was when the guest had asked her about, sort of like first, first dates. I think she's written about online dating and things like that. And her name is Lori Gottlieb, and yeah, she's written quite a few books, um, and they're very good. So I'm not going to say that she's not. She's excellent. She's excellent, but it's just we all have certain variations of what we feel works and what doesn't in our lives. Um, and it comes through our past experiences. So he asked her about, whether or not it's right for the gentleman to pay for the meal. Let's say, well, I would never suggest going out for a meal on the first date. I would suggest an easy exit um, encounter, let's say a coffee. But I'm guessing it's the second or third date and they're now out for dinner. And, how would you think about the gentleman picking up the bill? And she replied that, yes, like, of course, like they're going to pay for the meal. And I'm like, what? Like, that is not what I would be comfortable with at all. And I'm not sure why, but it's just not me. Now, it could mean I'm flawed. I'm not saying I'm right or she's right. All I'm saying is intrinsically to me, that seems wrong. And if I were to define why, I would say, hey, this relationship is new. I don't expect you to pay for me. I'm a completely, independent, capable person of paying for the meal. And probably I don't want to have some sort of like, I don't know, idea that I owe someone something, or um I mean, it could be something, oh, well, okay, thanks. The next one is on me. But what if I have no intention, into seeing this person again? But so I don't know. And her reasoning behind that was probably just, you know, kindness, maybe chivalry. Yeah, I mean, she didn't really define it. So I just wanted to say that I do not see it that way at all. You can agree with me or you cannot agree with me, or and please comment if you feel one way or another. I'd love to hear more conversations around this. And the other thing she said though was okay. So I can't remember exactly what the description how this was all kind of brought up and described, but it was something about, okay, the couple having a conflict, and I think she was talking about the conflict within the therapy room. So let's say they're having a conflict, they're having a discussion, they are quote unquote arguing. And the woman, and this is true, like a woman could potentially start crying more easily than a man. That's no big surprise, right? So she said, you have to be very careful with that because it could be used against the man in like she's playing the role of a victim. So, poor little thing, she's crying now. And so a man, you know, might perceive that as this is super uncomfortable. Now I can no longer speak. Um, I'm a bad person. I'm mean. I made her cry. He could have all these self-deprecating um, affirmations towards himself, right? That causes him to shut down. Um, or, I mean, it could be completely different. Maybe outside of the therapy room, maybe he kind of goes, maybe he starts mocking her. It's like, oh, you're crying again. You're pulling that string. Like, really? That make, you're going to cry? Really? And I mean, neither one of those responses, like whether it's silent responses where he shuts down or overt responses in terms of, expressively mocking her, the best response would be, I'm sorry that this is hurting you deeply. Do you want me to continue expressing myself, or should we end this conversation now? And in a sense, it should be ending, because if we go back to the Gottman method of couple counseling, where John Gottman talks about flooding, for example, flooding is when the person becomes overly emotional, kind of goes into fight or flight mode, or, in this case, almost freeze mode for the woman, um, or fawning, you could say, then that's where she should be excusing herself and just saying, this is too much for me. I need to step away. And for him allowing her to step out of the room, compose herself, and then re-enter. Now, the advantages of being in a therapy room is, how I can sort of intervene and mediate this. Asking her, is it okay if he continues? And perhaps me coaching him through how, he could maybe express himself in a way that he still delivers empathy towards her and in a comforting sort of way, right? That's the advantage. And I mean, I really like this type of intervention in a therapy room because, and I think men actually really appreciate this, is because they do tend to have more difficulty expressing themselves than a woman would. And, being vulnerable in that sense and allowing himself to possibly express for the first time um, why, he's in conflict with her right now. And, because likely the same conversation was happening over and over prior. And either they're both so triggered, it ends up into, a screaming match and nothing's resolved, or it ends up like, you know, it shuts down. So neither one of those, like this way, perhaps we can still speak our truth and come to some sort of understanding of what each other's needs are. And that's always the end goal. So she she kind of described it as, a woman using it as a tool to manipulate. And I can see that. I mean, I think it is actually used by women in terms of a tool to manipulate. But as someone, and this is where we bring individuality into the picture again, as someone who does cry on a dime, which is me, like I could be talking about the most, I don't know, like sort of neutral conversation, but if it hits a deep emotional like string, like a family, um something that has to do with deep connection, family, deep love, I mean, I am going to start to cry. It's like there's no way I can hold that back. Like no way. And I'm not using it as a way to, you know, play the victim or shut down my partner or make him do something that he doesn't otherwise want to do. It's just who I am. And so I also kind of, took a little, like I at first I agreed with her and I thought, yeah, yeah, it's true. I do see that happening. But then I started thinking about myself and I thought, wait a minute. I think I do the same because I just know who I am. Like I'm the one that will walk into a funeral, like for a friend, hear sad music and just start bawling because I'm thinking about my own family or something like that, right? Music really gets me. Like I can think about a sad thought about someone, potentially losing my mother or something like, yeah, like the loss of my other two siblings, or it takes very, very little. Like the thought of loss combined with maybe music is, yeah, I'm not a strong person that way, and I'll be the first one to say it. Um, so it's like it shows what's super meaningful to you, right? Um, and no one's a mind reader, you know. It's not fair for like the partner to mock her either, saying that she's using like she's pretending to cry or something like that. I mean, that's horrible. I mean, I'm sure there are like manipulative women out there. I'm sure there are. For sure there are. But you can't paint that brush over all women as a tactic. That's not fair. So that's all I have about, that interview. And yeah, I just wanted to say that because it's a couple things that aren't spoken about very much. So what have I been seeing in the room lately? I mean, nothing has really changed. Um, there's lots of resentment. It's still circulating. And but let's talk about, okay, self-awareness and why that's always the key to living a better life. Everything from, again, your health to your relationships to business and finances, and constantly asking yourself, why am I doing the things I'm doing? Why do I have these thoughts? What are my thoughts? That doesn't seem like a very nice thought that I have right now. Why is that? Um, and maybe journaling, just having that sense of awareness, since instead of like being on like this hamster wheel of life and doing the same thing over and over. So, um, I think one of the most important things to realize, and it's something that we all all need to do more of is to realize we are complete messes. Like we are completely flawed and a mess. Like the whole thought of, the whole like being able to be humble, being able to have that sort of humility that, we want to strive for, but yet having a solid sense of esteem or ego, like to be able to have both is extremely challenging. So, and so like when I say a healthy ego, I mean an ego that has a certain level of self-love. Because I mean, that's where it gets cloudy, right? Where does self-love and confidence and healthy sense esteem meet humility and being humble and being observant of the fact that you are flawed? Like, I mean, I think, it can be very challenging for me in my career in this sense. Like, as a mother and as a partner, um, first of all, having studied human behavior for as long as I have, and to still sit back and go, well, okay, I'm not like, you know, I I'm not there, like far from it, So what's that all about? Like in terms of being this, paragon of, emotional intelligence, like, being some, guru of mindfulness, throughout my day. And like it's easy like to have the experience that I have and the knowledge that I have to not like to think that, I obviously am very aware of my behaviors, or I'm doing everything right, but it's great having kids, like not even teenagers anymore. Well, yeah, actually, I have one teenager, um, but the other one, young adults, to be in the house, and they definitely remind me that I'm far from it. Take it or leave it, um, what their insight is. And, obviously, anybody in a relationship is always constantly reminded of there's still more work. There's still more work. There's still more work. Um, so, but there, I mean, definitely there was a time where I would, where I thought like, oh yes, my partner is completely flawed. They're not trained in this. They haven't read X thousands of books on, um, yeah, self-awareness and emotional regulation, and, what it takes to change and things like that. Like you can become so blinded, um, when you have, anger towards someone, um, when you're deeply sad, when you're feeling very alone, it's so easy to go into this victimization stage, which I talked about before. It's, crying in isolation. I mean, we all need to do that, but it's really easy to play that, woe is me card over and over, and life is happening to me, why me? Like why like why everything? it's a really lonely stage of life, and I think the only way through that is expressing yourself more and expressing your needs more and realizing that it's not always going to be received the way you would love it to be received, right? I mean, everybody struggles with self-responsibility. So to be the person that can say sorry very easily is extremely it's a virtue that I think we all strive for and that we need to practice more and more to remind ourselves, I am not perfect. I can very easily make mistakes. Um, maybe I'll say maybe I'll say sorry and then look at it deeper later instead of like immediately going to yeah, but and everyone's intentions are good when we say that. It's sort of like when you think of it, like when you rewind the tape in slow motion, it's sort of you have such a hard time saying sorry because again, your ego sort of all of a sudden intervenes and takes over you and you think, no, I must let them know how flawed they are so that they don't do that anymore. It would be a disservice, for me to keep my mouth shut and just say sorry because they must hear this message because now they're going to be a more enlightened individual having just been in my presence. Oh my God. You know, wake up, you're in a dream. That's the problem is that we're so unaware. We're so in our bubble. We're in our head. We're not actually in the conversation. We're not actually reading their body language. We're not, and even if they're completely wrong, like look at their body language. Are they tense? Like, are they angry? Are they, and do you think they're going to hear your message and welcome it in? No, you know, um, sometimes when I work with people that are highly defensive, I tell them, just apologize, walk away, and allow that other person to be wrong. And somehow that helps them because, they feel, okay, so I'm right, you're wrong. And that way they can actually exit without saying something really stupid or being defensive or, you know, and but it's really, I mean, that's not what we want to, of course, think or feel because there's no such thing as being right and wrong ever. There's no there's no I win, you lose. There's no black and white in anything that we do as far as context and human behavior, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, all you have in that moment is a certain perspective of the situation, which is a conglomeration of all your past experiences, like from birth, which could be, you could even say whatever epigenetics has, been passed on through the umbilical cord from your mother's trauma and your father's trauma and whatever, soup mixture that is. And so you open up your eyes and you're already flawed, and then you combine that with all your past experiences, all your learned behaviors, and what happens is that you have this certain perspective of life, of experiences. What is the best day ever for one person could be the worst day ever for another person. That's why some people's glasses are half full and other ones are half empty. That's basically why it's sort of, depending on how how they got to this point, they have a certain perspective. And I always like to think of a perspective sort of being, we would love it to be including all our peripheral vision, and actually kind of maybe if you think about the vision being, you know, having a certain like, well, I mean, if we're talking about vision, I mean, we only have a certain field of vision, right? We can't see behind us, but it's like a completely self-aware, enlightened individual would that field of vision would go like 360 around ourselves. But we got to realize that we have very narrow perceptions. We have blinders on, and we're often in our heads rather than even looking out and reading a person's body language and actually hearing what they say. So, that's what I mean about being completely flawed. Like, I mean, it's just, how can we not make mistakes knowing that we really just, it's seeing the world from the lens of our past experiences. So, you could be blessed, um, in the sense that, I don't know. I mean, you were birthed by like two like enlightened beings, um, who taught you from day one, kindness, love, humility, trust, honesty. I mean, whatever, sum of all the virtues that you aspired to, but chances are you weren't. I know I was not. So just because you come from a loving home doesn't mean you don't have flaws. Um, so, but in terms of becoming a better version of yourself, yes, I think those people that come from a very loving, kind, caring, empathetic, expressive family is going to be further along in the race to enlightenment than the other poor bloke that is at the finish line. I mean, at the starting line yet, because, you know, he was abandoned at, the age of 12 by his father, and his mother's, bipolar. Like, I mean, obviously it's going to be difficult for that person to sort of have that same sort of loving, caring normalcy in their life. So, yeah, I mean, I guess my main message then is just this whole this whole idea of trying to practice more of that self-awareness that I am a work in progress. I really am. And I would come along much further or make advancements in this so-called race for happiness or well-being if I try to focus more on my partner's um, qualities, my partner's strengths, my partner's endearing traits, because I do feel, you know, like I can't. I mean, whatever. I've never had a psychopath in my room or a pedophile or but for goodness sakes, there must be something about that person. Maybe when we wouldn't call it an endearing trait, but who knows? Maybe they're humorous. I don't know. I mean, I know we're really, you know, reaching the bottom of the barrel here, trying to find something. But like, I mean, I do feel humor is a wonderful trait. So, you know, it's really like if you can't say anything kind, don't say anything at all. It really comes back to those things that you learned back in kindergarten, like, yeah. So, and I would say try that. Try, like, ask yourself, am I committed to this relationship? Like, if you are in that sort of resentment, part of your relationship right now, like deep in the resentment and deep in the hurt, um, where what the Gottmans call, having a like this negative sentiment override. That's it's like a dark cloud or fog that has sort of slowly encompassed your home. And when that's happening, it's like the most neutral statement from your partner becomes a trigger for you. It's sort of like, um, what are we having tonight, honey? Oh, you know, so you expect me to cook again? Why don't you take something out of the freezer for once? Why is it always me? Um, and yeah, like, I mean, that's just one example. Like, I mean, so it's a neutral statement. He didn't say, uh, you seem so grouchy today, mm, which is not a thing we would say, even though it is quite obvious. Because why? Because we are using a you statement and we are describing our partner's feelings. Two things we need to stop doing more. That's what I mean about self-awareness, before, like, taking the pause and ask yourself, like, is my next statement going to be helpful, to the situation? Is it going to, is it kind? Um, will it get me anywhere? No. Again, like, if the person is indeed grouchy, you bringing that to light is not going to make the person less grouchy. Um, Best to let them self-regulate, express themselves in the sense that they are grouchy. A better statement might be, empathizing with them, but not, again, not like, did you get out of the wrong side of the bed this morning? It's more like, I'm noticing, I feel that, you know, I can, I'm noticing you seem to be tired. You seem to be despondent. You seem to be quiet. Is everything okay? You know, again, not describing your partner, but describing yourself, your feelings. Um, I feel like you've been overly quiet the last few days. I'm wondering, I'm curious whether that solitude has anything to do with myself or my behavior. What do you need? And let's say the person comes back with a really rude comment, you know, I need you to stop being such an asshole. Okay. Um, Thanks for sharing. But, it would be like, Okay, like if that was actually the reply, then I would say, um, okay, uh, maybe we can talk about this more later. I want to know, I'm curious, I want to know more. I want to know more why you feel that way. I'm just, as you know, headed out to work right now. Can we take some time to talk about this later on tonight? Are you free? And I get it. That that's sort of the enlightened human being responding in that moment, right? That's where there's no other children around. Um, it was a perfectly beautiful morning. Like you had your breakfast, you had 9 hours sleep the night before. Um, the birds are chirping, and I don't know. Like, I mean, rarely is that the case, right? So, and I mean, it's never, yeah, like it's never a good time, in that sense. Like you just let it go. I'd say that's the best thing to do. Let it go. Um, and just, keep it together. That's what I mean, like self-regulation, being able to, I'm not going to say not be triggered because you can't help that. That goes back to what I said to you about me crying. That's like sneezing to me. Like I can't. Like I just can't. I mean, I was a mess when when it was time for the bride, myself, to make, to think, whatever, make my contribution to the speech, right? Like it was like, and I could, well, I mean, I guess it is a skill. I was going to say like everybody can change a behavior. Maybe it was a skill that I needed to practice more. Like, I mean, but how meaningful is that skill to me, I suppose, right? Like, is it because behavior change is always available, but you have to have a solid why. And that's the only time behavior change is gonna happen is if you have that deeper meaning. And so if I had a really deep meaning in terms of why I don't want to cry in front of all my guests, then maybe I would have practiced it more, but that wasn't really the case. So, I mean, that's what I mean. Find your why, um, and find the deeper meaning behind why you behave the way you do, why you get dysregulated as easy as you do, why it appears that you can't control your anger, in certain situations. Why? I mean, you can't control anyone else. So don't you think it's worth your time to figure out why you're behaving the way you are? Why your partner is as angry and resentful towards you as much as they are. And I don't mean, again, look at them and go, well, it's because she's going through menopause, or, well, it's because, work's really tiring her out, or, well, it's no. Why, what is it about me that does not seem supportive of her? What have I done? What could I still do? Are you willing to fight the fight? Are you really willing to put the effort that's required in order for this, relationship to change? And yeah, like are you doing the things that your partner have asked you to do? If you're not doing them, why is that? Why have I not um weaved in the necessary amount of time that it takes to do what's required in order to make change? Again, then it just really goes back to whether or not it's meaningful for you. you know? Um, like even going back to that example of cooking that night, what's meaningful to you? It is is it meaningful for you to provide food on the table that evening, or is it more meaningful for you to maybe do some self-care and or catch up at work, all the things that you're behind at work, like, because I'm all about food being prepared with love and, nurturing our family with food. I'm all about that. But if you've neglected yourself in some way for weeks or years or whatever it might be, then, you know, I think you better take care of that first, because you can't prepare a meal when you have complete resentment of being in the kitchen. I mean, that's not good energy. So honestly, guys, it just really comes back again to exploring yourself, what your needs are, where have you not given yourself the attention that you require. So let's end at that. Turn the spotlight on yourself. And I think if everyone did this, I mean, the world would be a beautiful, beautiful place. But again, it's that balance between self-love, self-esteem, self-confidence, and, ridding this idea that I need to be perfect, that I'm completely flawed, a complete mess. And chances are I'll be different versions of this mess throughout my lifetime. But I'm looking forward. I'm looking, into the future. What might it be 1 month from now? What might it be 6 months from now? And keeping that in the forefront of my mind, a year from now, 10 years from now with my partner. What is that going to look like? And we all know that if we like having a vision, having a meaning, is very helpful. But then we have to reverse engineer and go, okay, what are the steps that do I need to do now in order to attain that? Right? So we did that with our careers. We did that with our studies. We held true to our vision. So it's no different in your relationship. All right. Have a wonderful week. I trust that spring, I'm recording this on March 18th, and the sun is shining, and the snow is melting, and the river is breaking up behind me in our backyard, and life is good. I'm in for spring. Okay. Talk to you next week. Thanks once again for joining me on another great episode of I Think I Can podcast. If you liked it, please subscribe below so you don't miss out on any future episodes. And until next week, treat each day like it was your last, because each new day is a privilege that we shan't take for granted. Cheers and have a great week. Bye-bye.